The mob rules. I was asked recently to explain where consensual reality comes from, that is to explain what basic reality is, and how it is created, how it is determined. This is a very interesting and highly complex question that has many nuances that would be hard to explain in great detail in a simple video, but there are many concepts that we can touch on, and interestingly, these concepts can also give us a much greater understanding of how the world works, how it is that it comes to be, from the most individual sense, as in how it is that you come to the conclusions that you come to as an individual, and how it is that then a group of many individuals establishes a ruling order within society. That is how individuals then create what could be termed consensual reality, reality of the masses. As many might already know from participating endlessly in the many interactions to be had online nowadays, people are a very opinionated bunch. Generally speaking, people seem to have one particular thing in common, and that is that they like to push their opinion on others, they like to make their particular beliefs known, and they, moreover, seem to do everything in their power to try to get others to agree with them, to think like them, to believe what they believe. This is such a strong drive within most of humanity, that it is really the single most important drive that creates many, if not all, of not only the consensual reality of humanity, but also many of the conflicts to be found within the human world. It is also this dogmatic disposition of the human race that can help us understand many basic ideas about the nature of reality itself, and how it is that we go about creating not only what we consider to be reality, consensual normality and common sense, but how it is that we go about creating the very world around us. How it is that we go about manifesting the world that eventually we do participate in, whether we like the nature of this world or not. I have said in the past that assumption equals reality. Part of what I mean by this is that people generally tend to make many assumptions, which means that they often believe something to be true, not because they have calculated or seen anything for themselves directly, but because they have heard something from someone or some group that they consider to be an authority figure or an order of authority. Now, for example, the current ruling classes of the times are saying that the world is what it is because it is a physical thing, that the world cannot be altered, that truth is therefore not a belief, it's not a choice, but a fundamental aspect of reality. There is no choice. The world is a solid and hard object-filled place that is run by certain laws that are unquestionable. The ruling order tells us all that the world is what it is because we are perceiving it as it truly is, that our senses do not lie, reality is therefore self-evident, period. But, in accordance to the beliefs of inner alchemists and many other mystical orders, and a few less powerful cultures of this time, the world is not one way or the other because it is somehow some indestructible solid thing with unchangeable laws, but that it is what it is because people perceive it that way, and people perceive it that way because they are told that this is the way that it has to be perceived. Humanity, though, these other orders argue, has the potential for other forms of perception, and there are indeed many varied choices in the perception and the determination of reality. This is a topic that I go into in much finer detail in my book, The Occult Experience, which I will leave a link to in the video description below, but in the most fundamental sense, we could say that our senses, our 5 physical senses, are not these instrument or mechanical-like things, machine-like things, like human-made contraptions, that can only perceive and do in a certain fashion. Our eyes, for example, are not cameras, they are not even lenses for that matter, but instead are alive things that can change and constantly do change, and have the potential, because of that great flexibility, to be able to perceive the world in many different ways, not just the established way that posits that the world is made up of solid things, bound to unchangeable laws. The ruling order of this modern time says that our eyes can only see the world just like cameras see the world, but those mystics that I mentioned do say, for example, that the eyes have the ability to see far beyond current scales of perception, and further that human eyes are able to see the world in many different ways, that may allow them to not just see the world as a 3-dimensional box full of objects, but in many different ways, and each one of these ways then allows for different perceptive and cognitive possibilities, for different human worlds, different realities, that can become the consensual human reality, if enough people begin to perceive in such a fashion. The great flexibility of humanity, then, is both a great advantage, but also a great disadvantage, because it can allow humanity to evolve in many different and powerful directions, but it can also allow an elite group, a ruling class, to dictate how it is that the world is to be, and in doing so, this elite group quite literally creates consensual reality, what reality is supposed to be, and in that sense then what could be termed really the religion of the times. What is the nature of reality then? And who is it or how is it that we go about creating this reality with the above in mind? Well, we do so by establishing or being dominated by a ruling order, a ruling group, that is given or bestows upon itself the authority to know the nature and the shape of reality, and then this order goes about expounding and enforcing the rules and the rulers, the measuring devices, that must be used to perceive reality. Quite simply, they say that this is so, and others then are made to believe through agreement, charm, or force that this is so. Now, our current ruling class is a class that has established itself after many hundreds of years of development. This new ruling class tends to posit that the world is made up of solid objects, as I have said, and that humanity, and the individual, is another solid object within this menagerie that makes up what we are told is the world at large, the real world. This ruling order, which can be seen as the religion of the times, is called rationality, reason, or common sense. One again may ask, how is this possible? How is it that we allow ourselves to create such orders, such ruling orders that are allowed to take over and control so much? And the simple answer to that is that we are as a species a very opinionated bunch. Each individual one of us has an opinion, and we want everyone else to agree to our opinion. Further, it seems that we also seem to be a species that likes to be right, meaning that we do not like to seem like we don't know what we are doing. We are very self-important. For that reason, we tend to align ourselves with authoritative figures that can guarantee the fact that we will always be right, that our opinion will be right always, because if these powerful authorities are right, then we are right in believing what they believe. Moreover, if some disagree with this authority that is now our authority, this powerful authority, that is us, will punish these heretics and rebels that are from our point of view then rebels without a clue. We are therefore a species that creates a structural order, a descending order quite naturally, that places its rule makers, its rulers, at the very top of the structure, and then in a descending order places the rest of humanity below them. This is the way that we create and see the world. This guarantees that the human ego will not ever be wrong, that its opinions will always be the correct ones, the ones that are shared by everyone else, and that in the attainment of such opinions, we will not have to work too hard, because another aspect of humanity is the fact that it tends to not like to defy inertia. If in motion, let it stay in motion. If at rest, then why bother? And in that sense, humanity can be very much like an object that it now believes, and therefore perceives, itself to be, all in accordance to the rational belief structure of the times, the ruling order of the current times. If we follow this train of thought, as to how consensual reality is created, from the beginning, that is starting at the individual, we can again, using the modern belief pattern of the time, firmly believe that the world is out there, it is outside ourselves, because we perceive it as such. We can as an individual say to ourselves that the table in front of us is indeed a table, and that it is in front of us because we can see it, feel it, etc. But again, the mystic posits that the table is out there, and it is a table, because certain agreed upon and very well established belief structures have been created by a ruling establishment, which then allows the very flexible senses to perceive the table in that manner. And that this belief that such a thing as a table is out there is believed by so many individuals, so many members of this one particular ruling order, that indeed this out there table, perception and belief, do become the consensual reality of this particular time. But there is, and there are those currently in this world that can see the world in a different way. And there is therefore the possibility of seeing in a different way, in accordance with different belief structures, and using such alternate structures, and therefore sensual perceptive points, that same table may appear to be something else, which then alters the relation that a witness might have to that table, which then further changes therefore the very cognitive reality of the witness. It quite literally creates a new world, and a new way to perceive and deal with this table, or objects in general, and all existence. So, consensual reality, basic reality, is created by a ruling order. Such an order makes sure that each one of those individuals within its sphere of influence agrees as much as possible to their rules, their belief structure. When a certain consensus is reached, when a certain amount of individuals believe, you have a world order, a true world, created and maintained by all of the individuals participating, through choice or enforcement, in the beliefs, the dogma, of the group. This new order will then always make sure to expound over and over the dogmatic operating principle that the world is not a choice, that perception is not a choice, that there is only one way, one truth, and that this group, that they, are the holders of that truth. Certainly this is not a simple or quick process, but it is the process by which civilizations are created, and the process by which we now stand at the leading edge of an object-filled, rationality-based world that negates any and all mention of spirit, or any inner aspects of self whatsoever. The creation of an established reality consensus then requires a ruling class, which is an authoritative group, that then rallies to it through charm, choice, enforcement, or coercion, a majority of individuals that then share in the ruling order's belief structure. Once this order is established, and enough individuals exist with unwavering faith in that order, you have a mob, you have a very large group of very like-minded individuals that as a mob work then as a seamless unit, as a larger entity, to further empower the opinions, the belief structure, laid out in explicit detail by that ruling order. The world then, and all of reality are created quite simply by a ruling order that creates a mob, and that mob then goes about, in very mob-like fashion, perpetuating those beliefs, that belief structure. This is how the human world creates. It is even how certain things are manifest and come to be. The world is made up of the battle of the mobs, and the biggest mob wins. So there can be, and there is currently, more than one active mob in the world, each one of these groups, each one of these mob entities with its own particular ruling class at the very top of it, battles against all others, trying to consume the other and topple everything that is not itself, until either by hook or crook, and endless churn, creates a complex order that then is seen by those individuals participating in this great complexity, as the nature of reality, as consensual reality, as basic reality, as what reality is itself. There is much subtlety in detail in all of this, and I have gone into it in my books. In particular, I would highly recommend my books, Overcoming the Archon through Alchemy, where I discuss the nature of this mob battle, which in that book I call the mimetic wars, and as far as how it is possible to change the nature of the external senses, and therefore perceive whole other worlds, through other belief structures, I would recommend the book, The Occult Experience. I will leave a link to them in the video description below. These two books, I feel, will give a very good description of how all of this basic reality is established and goes about creating what could be termed not only consensual reality, but also the manifest, and even the order, the ruling orders, of the world.